A penalty, 12 yards, striker against goalkeeper. It looks easy enough, doesn't it? And any pro will tell you you should score every time. In the Premier League last season, 70% of penalties were converted. And yet in the World Cup just gone, two of the finest players in the world, Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi, both missed from the spot. Everyone's taken a penalty, whether it's in the street or on the park or even in a ground like this at Warrington Town. But what about at the very top of the game when the pressure's on? What's it like to be a professional, paid the big bucks and expected to score or expected to save it?
It's great for a goalkeeper. I've always said this, there's no pressure. You're not expected to save them. And if you do, then the chances are you'll be a hero. And it's an important penalty. But yeah, I used to love facing penalties. Didn't get near too many of them, but there's no pressure on the goalkeeper.
I waited for the goalie to move. I used to do the shimmy. I was the first one to come up with it, funny enough. I should have patented it. But yeah, it's something that I've always thought about when I was young. Trying to, it's a technique you got to have, because you've got to have your eyes on the ball and keep it at the same time. So, but once you stamp your right foot before your left foot goes alongside the ball, it sends the goalkeepers, they always went early anyway, and then if you held your nerve and your composure, you could stroke it into the corner. I've done it with Liverpool quite a few times, but it also, it's funny, most of the pens were in the cop end for some reason. We won't go there with the referees. But yeah, I used to put most of them in the top right-hand corner. If the goalkeepers didn't move or didn't do the shimmy, they'd go in the top right-hand corner, yeah.
When I first went to Wigan, they had obviously an analyst chap, and he come up with penalties, who you're going to be playing at the weekend, who's likely to take them. So they used to give you 2 or 3 penalty takers, but you used to know who it would be on the day, and they'd show you penalties past probably hopefully the last 4 or 5 penalties, and where they go more, where they prefer to go. But then on the day it's totally different. But if you go along with that advice you're given, then you've got a chance.
I always enjoyed taking penalties. Some players don't. Some players, I really enjoyed it. The pressure was all right. And plus, I was a greedy so-and-so. I always liked to see my name in the paper for scoring goals, because that's what I was getting paid to do. And it helped me tick along nicely over the years.
So then you've got penalty shootouts. More time to think, more pressure on you. A long walk to the penalty spot from the halfway line. If you're not careful, that pressure can swallow you up. The eyes in the stadium on you, the eyes around the world on you in the biggest matches of all.
Again, for keepers, it's brilliant. It's your chance, especially penalty shootouts. Your chance. We've seen it with Jordan the other day, Jordan Pickford. It's your chance to be a hero. Goalkeepers get enough stick and enough blame these days. So that's the one chance that I used to hope games would go to penalties when we were playing in cup competitions. As you say, it's brilliant for a goalkeeper. Tough on the penalty takers, really tough.
For Liverpool, penalty shootouts have been really kind to us. We've won 14 out of 18. We've won 2 European Cups, 2 League Cups and the FA Cup, all on penalty shootouts. And one of those League Cups was our last piece of silverware in 2012. But what about England in major tournaments? 6 times they've failed in penalty shootouts. For fans of the Three Lions, there was only the win over Spain at Euro 96 to point to for any success in penalty shootouts. That was until this World Cup, of course, and finally England won a penalty shootout at a World Cup at the 4th time of trying against Colombia. The papers the next day, they called it a miracle. The Times, it said, yes, it really happened. Meanwhile, Gareth Southgate was talking about getting smarter. He was talking about owning the process, controlling the process of scoring a penalty kick. It seems accepted now that there's a psychology to scoring a penalty kick. But what is it? And how can you control your mind to have a better chance of winning a penalty shootout?
It is a basic skill, and if you look at them in training, they put those penalties away more than 9 times out of 10. The way I tend to think about it in terms of competition pressure is, if you imagine walking across a plank of wood, you could probably do that fairly confidently. If you put that plank of wood 1,000 feet in the air, it's the same task, but the consequence of getting it wrong are so amplified. You can see where that sort of pressure happens. And I think most people, they would struggle to do the walk from the halfway line to the penalty spot, let alone score the penalty, because it is an incredible amount of pressure that's on them.
Well, a penalty is essentially a skill that is performed under pressure. So it's about practicing taking a skill under pressure. And tennis players practice their second serves before a big tournament. Golfers would practice putting before they played in the Ryder Cup. So why wouldn't a professional footballer practice taking penalties before a major competition? It's exactly the same. So the way you can improve your chances, simply take it seriously. Practice, but practice with purpose, which doesn't mean standing on the edge of the area with all your teammates, with everyone having a ball at their feet and taking a penalty when the time is right, when there's a space. Practice kicking a penalty after 120 minutes of training, so you're fatigued, so you've got that lack of energy in your legs, so you know how you'll respond when it comes to it. You can't recreate exactly the conditions, but you can get close to replicating those conditions, and that can only help you when the time comes.
Okay, so breaking it down into two different areas. In terms of general skills, focusing on what you can control, focusing on your processes, which is your kind of step-by-step way of executing the skill, talking to yourself, controlling your breathing. They're quite good general pressure skills. In terms of a penalty, there's a couple extra things people can do when it comes to taking penalties. So we know, for example, if your team goes first, you have a 20% more chance of winning than if they go second. We know, and again going back to the England team, players who tend to rush their penalty after the referee blows his whistle tend to perform worse. So I think the England players historically have been one of the quickest after the referee blows his whistle, whereas some of the more successful countries, they wait up to about 0.8 to 1 second. So it's not much more, but just taking that extra bit of time just to gather their breath and control their thinking tends to help them perform much better. Also picking, it's a bit of a cliche, but picking a spot and sticking to it generally seems to be quite good advice.
Last season in the Premier League, Liverpool were awarded only 3 penalties, and only one of those was at Anfield. They scored 2, the other one was saved. But in the World Cup just gone, there was a record 29 penalties awarded, thanks to, of course, VAR, including the controversial one in the final. So with England winning a shootout, with so many penalties being awarded at the World Cup, will clubs start to take it more seriously now? Will players start to practice more? Will psychology become more of the game? We'll see. Will fans forgive a penalty miss a little bit more than they traditionally do? Again, we'll see. But what we do know is we're going to keep on talking about penalties. If you think Liverpool were hard done to last season, Burnley didn't get a penalty in the Premier League all season. So next season, will Liverpool get more penalties? Will Burnley get one? Will Liverpool win another trophy on penalties? We'll see, but we're definitely going to still be talking about them.